Very good morning to all. We'll start the session at 10:30. We are waiting for some of the competent authorities and the dignitaries to join. Good morning, ma'am.
गुड मॉर्निंग मैम.
मैम 10:30 स्टार्ट करते हैं. वीसी सर शायद ज्वाइन करें.
ठीक है.
ठीक है, ओके. गुड मॉर्निंग मैम। इंदु मैम स्टार्ट करें? मैम आपका माइक ऑफ है। गुड मॉर्निंग रिदम सर।
Good morning, ma'am.
Sir, we will just start the session.
Sure, ma'am. Should I share my slides?
Sir, we will start with a small inaugural session, and after that we will request you to start the lecture.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
A very good morning and welcome to all in the inaugural function of a week-long faculty development program on recent advances in renewable energy technologies. Starting today on 27th January 2025 and ending on 31st January 2025. Organized by the School of Engineering in collaboration with Association of Indian Universities, Gautam Buddha University, Academic and Administrative Development Center at Gautam Buddha University. On behalf of the entire organizing team, I welcome all the faculty members, research scholars, participants, and everyone present with us today. I extend my warm regards to Dean, Planning and Research, Dr. Indu Preeti Ma'am, Dean, School of Engineering, Dr. Kirti Pal Ma'am, Head, Electrical Department, Dr. Omveer Singh Sir, Head, Mechanical Department, Dr. H.C. Thakur Sir, Head, Civil Department, Dr. Shobha Ram Sir, and all faculty members for joining this online inaugural session. I would also like to extend my warm regards to our speaker for the first session, Dr. Ridham Singh Sir, who is from IIT Roorkee and will be delivering his talk on the topic Solar PV Power Forecasting. Now, I would like to invite Dr. H.C. Thakur Sir, who is also the convener for the FDP and Head of Department Mechanical Engineering. His research areas include computational fluid dynamics, analysis of thermal systems, heat transfer enhancement methods, solar energy, solar chimney, etc. I request Sir to please come and brief us about the FDP.
Thank you, Kriti. Am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you, Kriti, for inviting me to tell about FDP. Good morning, everyone. Energy is a fundamental component of life, as we all know. From charging mobile phones and laptops to powering industry, it is impossible to imagine a day without utilizing mechanical or electrical energy. However, as educator and researcher, our role extends beyond merely being end users. We must delve into understanding energy resources, their environmental impact, and sustainability to ensure that future generations can thrive and inherit a healthier planet. Energy sources can be broadly categorized into two major types. The first is fossil fuel-based energy generation, which relies on resources like coal or natural gas. While these resources are widely used, but they are exhaustible and contribute significantly to environmental degradation. On the other hand, renewable energy resources such as solar power, wind energy, and hydrogen energy represents the future of the energy. These resources provide a cleaner, more sustainable way to meet energy needs. paving the way for more environment-friendly and sustainable future. This one-week faculty development program commencing today aims to raise awareness about the latest technologies and advancements in renewable energy. The program includes 10 technical sessions, each lasting 2 hours. Renowned experts from institutes such as IIT Delhi, IIT Roorkee, DTU, the National Institute of Solar Energy, NPL Delhi will share their research and insights on the topics like solar energy, wind energy, hydrogen energy generation, and energy storage systems. I am confident this initiative will provide a valuable learning experience for all those participating. Let us actively engage and make most of this opportunity. Thank you. Over to you, Kriti.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Kirti Pal ma'am, who is serving as the Dean of School of Engineering at Gautam Buddha University. Her area of interest include the restructuring of power system, soft computing techniques, renewable energy systems, electric vehicles, etc. I request Dr. Kirti Pal ma'am to share her thoughts with us.
Good morning, everyone. Honorable dignitaries, distinguished speakers, and dear participants. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to this one-week faculty development program on recent advances in renewable energy technologies. This gathering reflects our shared commitment to addressing one of the most critical challenges of our time, that is transition from sustainable and renewable energy resources. The purpose of this FDP is not just to explore these advancements, but to empower all of you with cutting edge knowledge and tools that will enable you to contribute meaningfully to this dynamic field. We are fortunate to have research who will share their expertise and insights. I encourage all the participants to actively engage in discussion, ask questions, and explore collaborations, as this is a rare opportunity to learn from such kind of speakers and make network with experts. I would like to express my gratitude to the organizing committee member for their dedication and hard work in making this event possible. I also extend my heartfelt thanks to our distinguished speakers for taking the time to share their knowledge and expertise with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Indu Preeti ma'am, who is working as an associate professor in the Department of Management and holds the position of Dean of School of Management and also Dean of Planning and Research at Gautam Buddha University. Her research area includes reliability theory and applications, numerical computation of stochastic models, Six Sigma, supply chain, etc. I request Dr. Indu Preeti ma'am to please come and offer her perspective to us.
Very good morning, everyone. Dean School of Engineering, Dr. Kirti Pal, our distinguished expert, Dr. Ridham Singh from IIT Roorkee, HODs of School of Engineering and from other schools of studies at GBU, the faculty members, the conveners, Dr. Nidhi Singh and Dr. Thakur from School of Engineering, faculty members and distinguished participants. I would once again like to extend a warm welcome to all of you to this FDP, which is scheduled for 5 days on recent advances in renewable energy technologies. As you all know that this FDP has been organized under the Academic and Administrative Development Center at GBU under the banner of Association of Indian Universities. Gautam Buddha University has signed a memorandum of understanding with Association of Indian Universities with the aim to create newer pathways of continuous learning and updating of skills and new knowledge among faculty members in order to make the higher educational institutions more quality centric and in a way preparing the faculty for changing e-governance requirements. So this is the third FDP under the AIU-GBU collaboration. Nodal officer Dr. Nidhi Singh and organizing team members have put in a lot of efforts to conduct these FDPs in time, as per schedule, and to ensure that the latest content is provided to the learners, so that the learners become aware of the recent developments in the field of science, engineering, and technology, which is the aim of conducting these FDPs. That is basically to enhance the skills of the faculty members and participants and for their capacity building. So the first FDP, just let me just brief you about what was the first and second FDPs were in this sequence. The first FDP was conducted on research methods, research trends in cybersecurity, blockchain and AI by School of Information and Communication Technology. And the second FDP was conducted on bioprocessing and biomanufacturing, from fundamentals to industrial applications by School of Biotech. So this is the third FDP, and very relevant and important topic has been chosen for conducting this FDP, as this topic is very well aligned with the goals of our collaboration, which is to train the faculty with appropriate skills in emerging technologies. Although everybody knows about the importance of renewable energy these days, and a significant amount of research is happening currently in this area, and the efforts are to improve the efficiency, effectiveness, and reliability of renewable technologies like solar, wind, hydro, geothermal, and biomass, etc. And all these are aiming to transition away from fossil fuels and thus reducing the carbon footprints and fight with the climate change issues. So this is a very important area. Researchers these days in this area are focusing on developing better solar panels, better turbine designs, wind turbine designs, better energy storage systems to maximize energy production and stability. And similarly, there is a lot of concern on the cost. So there is a concern to lower down the cost of renewable energy technologies to make them more competitive in a way with fossil fuels. And there is another issue, which is sustainability, which is to reduce the environmental impact of renewable energy resources, including land use and potential disruptions to our ecosystem. Similarly, I think the role of AI and big data can also not be ignored in this particular area, because it is very important, and it is helpful in optimizing renewable energy production and distribution. And big data analytics has been used to analyze patterns and optimize energy supply, reducing waste and enhancing sustainability, etc. So overall, this is a very important area, and many countries are heavily investing in R&D to improve the efficiency and cost effectiveness of renewable energy technologies. So I'm sure that the workshop will help creating some new knowledge areas in the field of renewable energy for future research. And I would once again congratulate the entire organizing team for their commendable efforts, and I would like to extend my best wishes to all the participants for a very enriching learning journey ahead. And thank you all for inviting me to this program. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your wise words. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Nidhi Singh, ma'am, Nodal Officer AIU, and also the convener of this FDP program. Her research area includes control system analysis and optimization using evolutionary techniques, modeling, identification and control of nonlinear systems, energy harvesting from photovoltaic solar systems, etc. I request Dr. Nidhi Singh, ma'am, to please come and deliver a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Kriti. A very warm and cherished morning to our today's expert, Dr. Rhythm Singh, Chairperson IIC, Dr. Hindu Preeti Ma'am, Dean in Charge, School of Engineering, Dr. Kirti Pal, Head of the various departments, faculty colleagues, students, and dear participants. We all have gathered here on this virtual platform for the inaugural ceremony of AIU sponsored Faculty Development Program on recent advances in renewable energy technologies. I take this opportunity to propose a vote of thanks to all the dignitaries present here and acknowledge the contribution of all those who have made this event a success. My special thanks to Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir for his guidance, motivation, and kind support for conducting this FTP. My sincere gratitude to Registrar for his support. I would like to express my sincere thanks to Chairperson IIC for always providing us with her valuable suggestions from time to time. And my thanks to Dean School of Engineering and Head Electrical Engineering Department for their support. I would also like to thank all the speakers who have accepted the invitation and has taken time and will take out time from their busy schedule and will be delivering their expert talk in this FTP. I would also like to thank Dr. Sandeep Rana and his team for providing us with the IT support. I extend my generous thanks to all the participants who have enrolled for this event. Their participation has added to the beauty of this function. I'm highly grateful to the working committee members of GBU AATC who were always present for any kind of help. My sincere thanks to the faculty organizing team of this FTP for taking up various responsibilities and making the event a success. And the last but not the least, I would like to thank AIU for supporting this event. Once again, thanks a lot to all present in this inaugural ceremony for making the event a grand success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I request all the participants and dignitaries present for this inaugural session to please turn on their camera for a group photo. Dr. Parvez Ali, please take a photo of everyone present.
One minute, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am, you can proceed.
Is it done, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, everyone. This marks the end of our inaugural session. I am now handing over to Dr. Parvez Ali for starting with the first session of the day.
Okay, good morning to all of you. Before proceeding towards our first expert session, it is a great pleasure to introduce a session that I am sure will be both enlightening and thought-provoking. As we continue to navigate the rapidly evolving landscape of renewable energy, one area that stands at the forefront of innovation is solar PV power forecasting. Solar energy, as we all know, plays a crucial role in reducing our carbon footprints and contributing to a sustainable future. However, to maximize the potential of solar power, accurate forecasting becomes imperative. For this reason, it is my privilege to welcome Professor Ridham Singh Sir, a distinguished authority the field of solar power in field of solar power and forecasting technologies. Dr. Ridham Singh is currently working as an associate professor in Department of Hydro and Renewable Energy at IIT Roorkee, India. He holds a PhD in Energy Science Engineering from IIT Bombay, a Master of Technology in Engineering Studies from IIT Delhi, and Bachelor of Technology in Electrical Engineering from MNNIT Allahabad. His research interests lie at the intersection of technological analysis and policy support for enabling a transition to renewable energy, technological analysis and policy support for enabling a transition to renewable energy technologies. Some of the problems that we had worked on are the he has worked on are the rooftop PV potential of Indian cities, generation scheduling optimization for integrating renewable generation, machine learning based solar PV power generation, forecasting, and energy system modeling for cleaner energy transition in transport sector. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to extend my warmest invitation to Professor Ridham Singh sir to join us and share his invaluable expertise. So thank you sir for joining us. Now it's over to you sir. You can present your PPT sir.
Thank you so much, Parvesh ji, for the kind introduction. So, and thank you so much for inviting me for this talk, Nidhi ma'am, and all the dignitaries of the university. I'm thankful for the invitation. So, let me share my slides to begin with.
Start it, sir. You can start, sir. Sir, is my voice audible to you, sir? There is some technical issue. Please wait for some time. Sir, is my voice audible to you, sir?
Yeah, I think I got logged out from the meeting due to some connection.
Okay, sir. You can start now, sir.
Sure. So I hope the slides are visible.
Yes, sir. It is visible, sir.
Great. And it's visible in the full screen mode now? Hello?
No, sir, you need to share it again, I think.
Okay, then I'll remove sharing and then share again. So now it's visible in the full screen mode, I hope?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
Great. Great. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's begin with this discussion. And somehow I have another meeting from 12 o'clock. So I'll be here. I have to leave at 12. So we have only 1 hour for discussion practically, maybe 5-10 minutes extra. So let's delve directly to the topic and go ahead with the discussion. So as already talked about and has been discussed by the starting people here in terms of the importance of the field. So we all understand that renewable energy is very, very important in the present context, and for the reason of climate change, and also due to the resource constraints in terms of the fossil fuels. We want to shift to a cleaner source of energy, and renewables are a very good match for that. And of all the renewables, if we see in the Indian context, the most abundant one is solar. So, and that also aligns with the way the government has been shaping the policy over the last couple of decades on solar PV. So that's all good, but then there are a few things which we need to take care of if you want to shift to a future grid, which is primarily dependent on solar PV. And that is the concern about the variability and uncertainty of renewable resources in general, and specifically solar PV, if we say. So as you all understand, any power system, any power grid, if we want to operate it under stable conditions, there should be a balance between the supply and demand. And traditionally, this was very easy to achieve because the demand was fluctuating, but the generation was in our own hands. So we can easily control the generation and match the supply with the demand. But now with renewable energy coming into picture, there is a higher degree of uncertainty and variability. And we understand that both solar and wind, if you look at them, they are completely dependent on natural factors. So how much is the solar radiation? How much is the wind speed? That will completely, it can change the output of the power plant from its rated capacity down to maybe 10% of the rated within a matter of few minutes. So that is a really challenging thing, and there are different ways of handling it. Definitely storage would be needed to deal with this high amount of uncertainty and variability, and there are increasing efforts for having more and more storage capacity also into the grid. So primarily we are looking at pumped hydro storage when we talk about large scale, or at a smaller scale batteries. So those things are also important. But one more thing which is a key solution, a key game changer in this context can be a good way of, or a proper forecasting for the generation. So if we can forecast in advance how much solar power or how much wind power we are going to have at a given time, at a given node in the power system, then we can appropriately plan for it and deal with it with adequate resources. So that is the background here. And just to tell you sort of a brief snapshot of what type of variability and uncertainty we are talking about. This is just one, image, one graph showing some real data from one location in USA, in Colorado. The graph is from one of the reports of National Renewable Energy Laboratory, USA. And just it shows the amount of variability and uncertainty which can suddenly come into the system when we are talking about solar PV, for example. So would you like to guess what are these three graphs here, A, B, and C? You see there are three graphs, black, orange, and blue one. So anyone would like to guess what are this A, B, and C? What quantities they depict? Any guesses? No guesses? Okay, anyways. So let me tell you, so there are these three graphs which you see, A, B, and C, and these are just the different components of solar radiation. So as we understand, primarily speaking, there are two components of solar radiation. One is what we call as the beam component. So I'm trying to write here. Yeah, so as we understand, there are two primary components of solar radiation. One is the beam component, which comes like a beam of light from the sun to the planet Earth. And so this beam component typically is measured by what we call as the direct normal irradiation, DNI. And there is another component of radiation, what we call as the diffused radiation. And this diffused radiation is measured by the parameter known as DHI, or diffused horizontal irradiation. And the net total of these two components is what we call as the global radiation, or total radiation. And this global we measured as the quantity known as GHI, global horizontal irradiation. So those are the three components of radiation which are shown here. And this component, this curve in black, this curve A, this is what is the DNI. And this component in blue here, C, this is what is the DHI. And the component B is not actually the global, but it is equivalent of global. So basically, when we define the global horizontal irradiation, we are talking about the radiation falling on a flat surface, on horizontal ground. Right. So there is some beam radiation coming directly. There is some diffuse radiation which is scattered, and this entire net effect of the diffused plus direct, what is there on the horizontal surface, that we define as GHI. But this graph here in orange color, that depicts the equivalent of global horizontal irradiation on a tilted surface. So because we know that your PV panels, they're always put at some tilt angle, and usually if you want to optimize the output around the year, then this tilt angle, if we call it by beta, this tilt angle is kept same as the latitude of a location to maximize the output of the PV panel. So how much is the radiation falling in the plane of array of this particular tilted panel? That needs to be estimated if you want to estimate the output of the your PV system. So this orange curve here is basically that irradiation. It is the what we call as the plane of array, POA, plane of array radiation. So how much is the effective radiation falling in the tilted plane of the PV panel? So those are the three components here. Just a second. Yeah. So those are the three components of radiation, what are shown in this graph. Now, as you can notice here at the bottom of this graph, just below the graph, in fact, there are these sky images, which you can see, these sky images. So these are captured from what is known as a sky imaging camera, or also known as the fish eye camera, for the way it looks. I mean, when you see the images, it is as if it's like a fish eye. So basically, the camera is kept exposed to the entire sky, the entire hemisphere of sky, and it has a very wide range of, the lens is a wide range lens, and it can capture the entire hemisphere of sky in any photograph. So it gives you a sort of idea of what is the situation of the sky, if there are clouds, or if it is completely clear sky condition, or it's partly cloudy or overcast, what type of situation exactly it is. Because primarily speaking, this radiation variation, which we are seeing, the fluctuation here, that is mainly related to the cloud cover in the sky. So if you see in these images at the bottom of the graph, at morning 8 a.m. here, the first image which you see, it is completely clear sky condition. There is no trace of any cloud. You can see the sun disk here at one side, and it is completely a open, sort of a clear sky condition which you see here. So, and that is what is reflecting in the graph. As you can see, the DNI component, so here the sunrise at that location on that given day is happening around 5 a.m. and DNI is quickly picking up, and it is peaking very soon around 8 or 9 a.m. It is reaching close to the peak. It is peaking completely at around 10 to 11 a.m. And accordingly, your plane of array radiation is also picking up, though it is not in the same fashion as the DNI. It is a little lesser in the beginning, but then gradually it is catching up with DNI. But then what happens as the day progresses, as you see this another image, the second image here, this is taken around 12 noon. And around 12 noon, as you can see, there are clouds being seen at the horizon. At the fringe of this image, you can see there are clouds. The sun disk is still visible, but at the fringe, the clouds started appearing. So it is like a partly cloudy type of situation is happening, though still very less cloud cover. So the effect of that, as you can see here, around 12 noon, the DNI starts fluctuating and the diffused component picks up. Because as the cloud cover will be higher, the diffused lighting will be more, relatively more in terms of the fraction or the component which is there. And DNI is starting to fluctuate here. The black curve, as you can see, is starting to fluctuate. And as a result, the overall plane of array radiation, the orange curve, is also fluctuating. And then as the day progresses, as you can see here in the third image, which is around 1 to 2 p.m., this third one here you can see it is completely overcast. So there is a little bit of sky which is visible, but the sun disk, it has been completely covered by cloud cover, and it is quite a dense cloud cover. The opacity is very high, and you cannot see any trace of the sun disk. You don't really know where the sun disk is for an observer from the Earth. And that is what is shown here in this figure. You can see the black curve has completely hit to the bottom. So between 1 to 2 p.m., there is no direct component, there is no beam component. It is completely zero here. But diffused has increased relatively higher in terms of the proportion, and that is basically due to the higher cloud cover. So the blue curve here, as you can see, it is around 200 watt per meter square, and also going up to 400 watt per meter square sometime later. So diffuse is there, and also in this segment, when the direct normal irradiation is zero, then your diffused and plane of array radiation, they are overlapping. So the blue curve and orange curve are completely overlapping. The entire radiation which the panel is receiving is basically the diffused radiation at this time. And then gradually as the day progresses, again, if you see here around 3 to 4 p.m. in this image, now again, the clouds are a little bit scattered and the sun disk is somewhat visible here, but still with a poor intensity, not with good intensity. And that is what is shown in the figure here. The DNI is back, but it is fluctuating and again going back to zero after some time. And overall, like that, the variation happens. So this image, just one representative image on a given day at a given location, shows how much can be the impact of cloud cover or the local weather parameter on the output of a solar PV panel. And the effect is very quick. You see, if you see here, the plane of array radiation around 12 noon, around, if you see this time or maybe around 12:30, here it is peaking and maybe around 1100 watt per meter square, somewhere around 1080 or something watt per meter square. And within few minutes, by around 1 p.m., maybe in another 30 minutes, it is down to 200 watt per meter square. For some time, it is remaining at 200, and then again within few minutes, from let's say around 1:45 p.m. and to 2:15 p.m. again within 30 minutes, it is peaking back to around 1100 watt per meter square. So this type of rapid ramp up and ramp down of generation is really very critical, and it is something which the grid operator will be very, very worried about, because if this happens at a larger scale across wide locations, and if a lot of PV goes up and down within few minutes, then maintaining the stability of the grid becomes a very, very challenging issue. And that is becoming of concern as the penetration of solar and wind increases in the grid. These type of challenges will be more frequent. So as I said, one option, definitely the solution is having more storage in the system, but then an additional requirement is having a better forecast, because if you can forecast it in advance, one day in advance, let's say, or at least few hours in advance, then you can plan for the contingency measures, you can plan for reserves and those things. So that is the context why the problem is important, and what type of magnitude of problem we are talking about. So with that background, let's look at a little bit of the conceptual things related to forecasting. So as we understand, load forecasting has been there in the power system. It has been there for several decades. And load forecasting is sort of a very standard problem which every grid operator solves, and they have a forecast of load. They know the load forecast from day ahead to week ahead, month ahead, and even for a long-term time frame from 10 to 20 years. So load forecasting is a very, very standard problem. However, the introduction of forecasts for renewable energy is more recent. And as we just now looked at the example of solar PV, with this type of huge fluctuation and variation coming within a matter of minutes, this forecast becomes very, very critical. And especially if you have a particular region where there is a high significant penetration of wind and solar power, then it becomes very, very important to have an accurate forecast. Many times the grid operators or the system operators, they will have several forecasts from several independent agencies to arrive at a proper decision-making process. And in this context, I just wanted to share that we had some interaction with the grid operator in India, who is known as the Grid Controller of India, which it was earlier part of Power Grid, and then it became another company known as POSOCO, Power System Operation and Control Organization, and then now they have changed their name. They are known as the Grid India. In short, they call as Grid India. The full name is Grid Controller of India. So that is the organization which looks at the stability of the Indian grid both at the regional and the national level. So we had some interaction in this regard with the Northern Region Load Dispatch Center, which is located in Delhi. And they informed that they take several measures to take care of this problem. And one thing is that every solar generator, every wind generator has to submit a forecast of how much power they generate. They're expecting to generate over the next day. So one day ahead forecast is mandatory for every PV plant, every wind plant owner, operator. And so that is one thing. So each of these solar PV or wind power stations, they have got something known as a weather monitoring station. And they sort of monitor the different weather parameters which are of relevance for their power output. And based on that, they share some forecast with the grid operator 24 hours in advance, one day in advance. And similarly, but the grid operator doesn't rely only on the forecasts of the independent power plants. They also go for many of the third-party forecasts. So usually they were sharing that they usually go for at least 2 to 3 independent third-party forecasts for each region. looking at what is the expected type of variability for weather in the next 24 hours, and accordingly how much generation to expect for solar PV and wind. So that is the type of criticality and importance the forecast is holding. And so this is about the short time. When we're talking about 24-hour ahead, we are mainly looking at the generation, how the generation will fluctuate. But apart from that, forecast is also important in the longer operational time frame. So as you can see here, it says in the longer operational time frame from days to weeks, system operators may want to schedule maintenance of transmission lines during periods of low forecasted renewable energy generation. So suppose if you consider a region like Rajasthan, let's say, Rajasthan has huge, already around 26 or 27 gigawatt of solar PV has been installed in Rajasthan, which is almost like 1/3 of the entire country. And then if you look at the coastal regions, they have a very good share of wind power. So those regions where there is solar or wind is in predominance, and they have long distance transmission lines carrying bulk power from that region to other parts of the country. So many a times, it is the maintenance of those transmission lines is planned in accordance with the lean period of the generation of renewables. So when we look at the longer time frame, some weeks ahead, maybe 4 week, 5 week ahead, then you have sort of some idea that, okay, which would be the lean season when your solar or wind will be having a lesser generation, and accordingly, the system operator would like to schedule the maintenance of the transmission lines during those periods. So those are the practical examples of how forecast is playing a role. Another important role of forecast comes in terms of what we now know as the electricity markets. So because as all of you probably understand, I guess most of you are from electrical engineering background, from power background. So probably you understand and appreciate that now in India we have different types of electricity markets. So traditionally, what was there was that there used to be what we call as so traditionally it was known as the PPA, Power Purchase Agreement. So there is one generating company, there is one distribution company, one DISCOM, and they will have some sort of agreement between them that, okay, this generator will supply this much amount of power to the DISCOM for X number of years and at some Y amount of tariff, rupees per kilowatt hour. So it was a long-term PPA. Usually the traditional PPAs in India, they were typically for a very long period, for 20 to 25 years, they would enter into an agreement. The bare minimum for a PPA would be that it should be at least greater than or equal to 7 years time frame. So those were like long-term arrangements for meeting the power requirement of the DISCOMs. But now with the introduction of electricity markets, the things have become a little more fluid or dynamic, you can say. They are much shorter time contracts are possible. So in India, we have 3 power exchanges. Do you know the names of those power exchanges? Anyone? No idea about the power exchange?
Anyone from the participants?
Okay, I guess that is the drawback of the online platform where the interaction is minimized. Usually it's more interactive when we have the classes, but anyways. There are 3 power exchanges in India. So one is known as the IEX, Indian Energy Exchange. Second is what is known as the Power Exchange of India Limited, PXIL. And third is what is known as the Hindustan Power Exchange, PX. So this IEX and PXIL, they started their operations in the year 2008, now 16 years back, whereas SPX is a new entrant in the system, and they started their operations in 2022, just a couple of years back. So these are the 3 power exchanges which we have. They are similar to the stock exchange, like you have BSE, Bombay Stock Exchange, you have NSE, National Stock Exchange, where the shares and those things are traded. Similarly, analogously to that, here on these power exchanges, you have trading of power. So the different generating companies, they can put their sell bids, they can sell power, and then the DISCOM companies and the distribution companies, the DISCOMs, or the big industries, like if you are a steel mill or if you're a refinery or you have bulk power requirement, then you can place a buy bid, and there is a mechanism through which the exchange will work out what are the cleared bids, and they will inform you sometime in advance that, okay, Some people have been qualified to sell the power on the exchange, through the exchange, and some people have been qualified to buy the power through the exchange. So that is the type of mechanism they have. And on all these three markets, so we have to be careful with the terminology. These are the exchanges, not the markets. So these three exchanges are there for power, and on all of these three exchanges, there are different types of markets which are operational. So you have these three power exchanges, and each one has got different types of power markets. So the power markets are primarily there are three. One is known as day ahead market or DAM. Another is known as term ahead market or TAM, and third is known as the real time market or RTM. So as the name indicates, in a day ahead market, basically you have the trading of power 1 day in advance. So if today is, let's say, 27th January, so today the bids will be placed for 28th January on a day ahead market. So those guys who want to sell, they have some extra power to sell. So usually what will happen, that a generating company, most of its bulk power, they will have engaged through PPA. They might have some excess power, and mainly it comes into picture for the renewable energy plants, because they have a lot of fluctuation. So they cannot really enter into long-term contracts for the entire quantum of their power. So some base power which they can be sure of delivering, that they can have through PPA, but then the variability or the fluctuation will always give them a scope for having the short-term contracts, short-term sale of power. So they can enter into a day-ahead market 1 day in advance and put a sell bid, and there can be buyers who can place a buy bid, and the transaction can be done. So that is the day-ahead market. Then you have a real-time market, which is very interesting, which was started in year 2020. In June 2020, I think they started this real-time market. And in a real-time market, the exchange of power, or in fact, the entire bidding of power happens just 75 minutes before the actual sale of power. So like right now, it is time 11:23 is the time. So if I want power at, let's say, around 1 p.m., so I can place the bid in the next slot of this RTM. And this RTM slots open every 30 minutes. So in the day, there are total 48 slots, and you can bid in any of those slots. And once you are qualified, your bid is qualified to buy or sell power, then the actual transaction, the transfer of power, happens within 75 minutes of the bidding time. So that type of, it's a very real thing, because it's a very fast thing for power selling and trading. You can because you can visualize what we're talking about. Traditional time frame was 20 to 25 years contract. Then we have squeezed it down to day ahead market, and now squeezed down to just 75 minutes in advance. So that is something sort of interesting phenomena which we have in India and across several countries in the globe. So that is the real-time market. And then term ahead market is another one where you have a lot of flexibility. It is somewhere more flexible than DAM and RTM in terms of time frame. So it is from 3 hours ahead to up to 11 days in advance. So that is the term ahead market. So those type of markets are available, and people can participate into that, and they can sell or buy electricity through that. So as it says here, in the daily operations of electricity markets, from day ahead scheduling to real-time dispatch, renewable energy forecasts can play multiple roles. So why it is important now in this context? Let's look at it. So first point here, you see operating reserves are an important measure for system operators to address the uncertainty and variability in grid resources. So as we said, this fluctuation of power which is happening, and we want to maintain the supply and demand in proper balance. And it is only recently that we have started talking about storage in a proper way. And still we have very less storage. If you see in India, hardly 5 gigawatt of pumped storage hydro is there, whereas our total power generation capacity is more than 450 gigawatt. So it's the storage capacity is hardly 1% of the generation capacity still. So storage is a pretty new phenomenon. Maybe in future it will pick up, but so far what the grid operators have been doing to balance out the system, to keep it in proper stable conditions, they have what is known as the operating reserves. So operating reserve is something like you can say like a power plant on standby, and if needed, this power plant can start supplying power to the grid, or it can operate in both ways. Let's say it is operating at some X level, it can increase its power to some X plus delta, or it can go from X to X minus delta. So the reserve can be in either direction. It can be reserve up or reserve down. So these operating reserves, they are a very important resource for the system operator. For the grid operator, it's a very, very important resource for maintaining the stability of the grid. So this operating reserves are further classified into two categories. One is the spinning reserve, another is non-spinning reserve. Spinning reserve means power plant which is already synchronized with the grid. Right? So as we all know, if you want to pump power into the grid, you need to synchronize with the grid. And synchronization means your voltage, frequency, and phase of your power should be same as the voltage, frequency, and phase of the grid. So those are the spinning reserves, which are already synchronized. So they can instantaneously ramp up or ramp down power. So usually the spinning reserve can respond within 30 seconds. So as soon as the grid operator sends a signal to a spinning reserve that you have to increase or decrease the power output, within 30 seconds, it should be able to follow that. Whereas there is another category known as a non-spinning reserve. And the non-spinning reserve basically is a power plant which is also sort of on a standby, but it is not synchronized with the grid. So that type of thing is known as non-spinning reserve. So these reserves are the ones which are important for maintaining the stability of the system. Now, with renewable energy coming more into the picture, how much reserve to maintain at a given time, that becomes a variable or a flexible thing. So if the system operator has a good forecast, if they know that, let's say tomorrow, they know that maybe, let's say from 12 noon to 2 p.m. there is cloud cover is expected and the solar output is going to go down. And if the forecast can actually quantify how much will be the dip in the forecast in the PV power output, so accordingly that much reserve requirement can be maintained for those 2 hours. So operating reserves are a very, very variable resource for maintaining the system stability, and the quantification of operating reserves, how much operating reserve is needed for grid stability at a given time, that can be worked out if we have a proper forecast. So forecasting can clearly play an important role in assessing the operating reserve requirements. Then further, bids and offers from consumers and suppliers of electricity along with the operating reserve requirements are considered in the clearing of the day-ahead market to produce a day-ahead schedule and corresponding prices for energy and reserves. So how this thing operates is that one is the long-term PPA, long-term agreements. So the system operator knows that, okay, what are the long-term commitments and how much power each one is expected to generate and sell, buy and sell on a given day. Then there is the day-ahead market which comes into picture, and once the day-ahead market is cleared, then the system operator will update the injection and draw schedule of all the generators and discoms. And once the day-ahead market is cleared, then comes the real-time market. So what will happen is that after the clearing of the day-ahead market, there may still be a need to adjust schedules due to contingencies or when realized levels of load or renewable generation deviate from their day-ahead schedules. So the idea is that, let's say we have done a very good planning. We know 1 day in advance how much load is going to be there. We already planned that, okay, we have X number of generators. Each generator should generate how much amount of power. We have done the planning 1 day in advance. But as we know, life is uncertain. Anything can happen at any point of time. So on that given day, so you have planned 1 day in advance, you have done the day-ahead scheduling, but on the given day, there can be something unexpected. So like it says here, the word here, contingencies. So there can be some sort of an unexpected thing. There can be contingency. There can be, let's say, one transmission line can trip, or a generator can trip, or some other contingency can happen, some natural calamity or something, due to which maybe what you had planned that this generator will be supplying this much power, it is not able to supply. Or there can be a change in the amount of expected load. So because load is also forecast, we don't know exactly precisely how much load is going to be there. There are very good, the load forecasts are very good. You can estimate with a very high degree of accuracy the expected load. But then again, there can be something uncertain due to which the load demand can go higher or lower. And another new factor of variability or uncertainty is the renewable generation. So as I said earlier that previously it was only the load which was uncertain, but now it's the renewable generation also which is uncertain. So maybe we expected some X amount of solar or wind generation to be there, but let's say the weather conditions change, the solar output, the solar radiation is low or the wind speed is low, so then your solar PV or wind output will be low, and due to that the renewable generation can be not as good as what we expected. So due to any of these reasons, due to any emergency, due to any change in the level of expected load or renewable generation, it is quite possible that what you had planned to balance the demand and supply in 1 day in advance, the plan may go haywire. It can be having a problem. And that is where the real-time market comes into picture. So at this stage, the system operator uses its own forecasts of renewable energy as well as load to make sure that sufficient resources are available to meet RT loads or the real-time loads. As the real-time dispatch approaches, forecasting plays an important role in balancing supply and demand in a cost-efficient manner while respecting transmission limits and other physical constraints of the power system. So again, in the real-time market, again, there can be new bids. So if someone is expecting a shortfall of power, they can put a new buy bid. If someone is having some excess power which they were not able to sell earlier, they can put a sell bid. So accordingly, the real-time market will also operate and it will smoothen out the system and the balance of supply and demand can be achieved. So that is again here also, as you can see, the forecast will play a critical role, important role, few hours in advance. So that is the in terms of stabilizing the system and the operation of day and real-time markets. Forecasts are important. And forecasts are becoming increasingly important for all the market participants, not just the system operator, but also the generation companies, the load serving entities, the traders, because anyone who wants to trade in power, they should know if they have a better forecast, they will be in a better position to trade. So these entities need to continuously monitor and analyze the market in support of their scheduling and trading activities. Renewable energy is already making significant impact on market prices in regions with large penetration levels. So I'll show you one example to convey this point, how much can be the impact of renewable generation on the market prices. This is some real data, again, from one particular region in the USA. And so the US grid is having different, regional grid operators. So one of those grid operator is this MISO, the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator. And under the MISO region, there are different states and different nodes which are there. So one of those nodes is the Minnesota node. And this graph here, what you see, it shows the day-ahead prices in selected Minnesota node, where a new wind farm was built in the vicinity within the MISO market in 2008 and 2012. So if you see here, there are two sets of graphs here. One, the blue one is in 2012, and the brown one is in 2008. So as you can clearly see, it's visible, quite visible, that the blue one is distinctly lower than the brown one. And the reason is this new wind farm which was built in that vicinity. And also another thing is if you observe, there is the zero line here, and the blue curve, the brown is also breaching the zero line once or twice in the year. But if you look at the blue curve, several times across the year, it is going below zero line. So there is a high frequency of negative prices in 2012 at that location. So that might be little, counterintuitive for you that we are talking about negative prices for electricity. That means if you consume electricity, then you will be paid for consuming electricity. So that's very counterintuitive. We have to pay to consume electricity, but in this case, it is said that you will be paid for consuming electricity because the price is negative. So why it might be there? Why do you think that negative price is happening? And why still, if the price is going negative, obviously because you are having excess generation in the system. But then why don't the power plant owners, they shut down the system? They should shut it down. They should reduce the generation. Why to generate power and have a negative price? That means you're generating power and also paying the consumer to consume it. Why? What might be the reason? What do you feel? Why the negative prices are sustaining and being so frequent in the system? Any guesses?
Anyone from the participant?
Okay, so I'll give you the answer. So basically, what is happening? There are two phenomena which are responsible for this type of a situation. So if you consider this, what is happening is that the wind farm which is there in that location, now wind farm is not having a running cost. Right? Once it's only the capital cost is there, installation cost is there, but once you've installed it, there is no fuel cost. It can keep operating without any running cost, operating cost. So if the wind farm is there, the wind operator doesn't have any incentive to shut it down. It's anyways there, even if it is generating power, what's the harm? And moreover, many of the times, especially in that era, when we are talking about 2008 to 2012, around that time, there was something known as a generation-based incentive, which was being given to these renewable energy power plants. That if you generate whatever amount of power you generate, proportionate to that, you will get some incentive from the government. Maybe it can be some tax rebate, or it can be actual financial payment or whatever. But there will be some incentive linked to the generation, amount of generation. So for the wind operator, it might be actually more, cost effective, more viable to actually keep selling power at a negative price, and anyways, the generation-based incentive will cover that particular cost. So that might be the reason for the wind operator. And on the other hand, there can be thermal power plant in that same vicinity, and that thermal power plant, for them, shutting down the plant and restarting it in a few hours might be much more expensive. Because as you understand, there is a very huge shutdown cost associated with a thermal power plant. And in fact, the thermal power plant can't ramp down the generation below a certain level. So in India, usually we say that the minimum thermal load, MTL, what we call as the minimum thermal loading for a thermal power plant, it should not be below 55% of its rated capacity. So below that, it's uneconomical to operate the thermal power plant. So for a thermal power plant, due to those operational constraints, they might be forced to still continue generating the power even when the power is prices are going negative. So negative prices have been occurring more frequently in markets in both Europe and the United States in recent years, creating profitability challenges for other generation resources, which may not be able to shut down their plants during such periods due to operational constraints. So again, in such situation, if we have a proper forecast, if we know exactly what time this thing is going to happen, this phenomena is going to happen, then maybe we can plan for something. We can, because now we are having the concept of storage also. So maybe that excess electricity can be stored in batteries or somewhere and then used at a peak period. Or now electric vehicles are coming into picture. Those electric vehicle charging can be optimized. It can be charged during the timing of these excess generation. So like that. A better forecast for renewable generation will help optimize the system further in terms of the operational efficiency. So overall, in order to analyze and understand the complex price dynamics in electricity markets, it is becoming crucial to consider the impact of renewable generation, and the use of forecasting is a key solution towards this end. So that is the different applications of forecasting, why it is important and what type of role it plays, how crucial it is in terms of proper functioning of electricity grid, in especially a grid having a significant penetration of renewable energy resources, solar and wind. So that is there. So okay, so with that, that is like the first segment of the talk, where we talked about the importance and the context of forecasting. Now there are two more segments of the talk, though the time is less. We will quickly go through a few more things. So one thing we will look at there is something known as the deviation settlement mechanism regulations for dealing with variation, fluctuation of renewable power or any power source for that matter. So with increasing share of renewables in the grid, it has become important to have forecasting, scheduling, and deviation settlement mechanism regulations for solar and wind power plants in India and across the globe also. So deviation settlement mechanism, there are two DSMs. You might have heard another DSM also. One is known as the demand side management, which is entirely different. There we talk about reducing the demand in response to the signals from the generation side. So that is another DSM as well. But this DSM here means the deviation settlement mechanism. So the grid, regulators. So in India, we have a regulatory mechanism also for power, as you might be aware. There are two levels of regulators. So there is one Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, what is known in short as the CERC, which deals with the rules and regulations for the power sector across the country at the central level. And then each state has its own State Electricity Regulatory Commission, SERC, which implement the regulations at the state level. So this CERC, or the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, they have developed the deviation settlement mechanism in India for dealing with the fluctuations in the power generation and for maintaining the stability of the system. So these provisions provide visibility in the quantum of electricity injected into the grid from renewable energy sources, and also regulate the market by penalizing deviation from the scheduled generation beyond the permissible limit. So these, the regulations, they sort of give the framework by which the grid operator can regulate the system. It can keep the power, the generation and demand in a very tight band, matched to each other. So for that, there are some penalty mechanisms for if you are deviating. So there is some, as we said, there is a schedule which is given 1 day in advance. Every power plant will get a generation schedule, and the generation schedule typically will be in every 15-minute time block. So overall 24 hours, 96 time blocks are there. So in those 96 time blocks, you will be informed that how much is the actual power you have to generate in each 15-minute time block. So that is the generation schedule, which is communicated by the system operator to the power plants. Now, there is a possibility that due to some operational constraints, some reasons, the generation might actually fluctuate. You might not be able to keep the schedule 100%, stick to the schedule 100%. So under those situations, when there is a fluctuation, there is a possibility that if the fluctuation is very large, it can render the system unstable, or it can basically, the most critical parameter of the system, the frequency of the system, needs to be very tightly monitored. So the frequency should not go haywire. So to maintain that frequency in a very tight band, the penalty mechanism is there that if you deviate from your generation schedule beyond a permissible limit, then there will be a penalty which will be imposed. So if you are deviating little bit, it is okay, but more deviation, then there will be a penalty. So let's look at a quick snapshot of these deviation settlement mechanism regulations from the CERC. So they keep it revising from time to time. And in fact, in the last few years, as the share of renewable energy has increased in a very rapid way, these regulations for deviation settlement mechanism have been revised, in fact, several years in the last, several times in each year for the last 2 or 3 years. But this is the latest one. The latest version of these regulation has been released by CERC in August 2024. And this is a quick snapshot of that. So to calculate the deviation, the formula is very simple. As you can see, it is the actual injection minus the scheduled generation. So how much is the actual so as a generator, how much power you are injecting minus the scheduled generation, how much you are supposed to inject. But then the second formula is interesting. If you see, this is the deviation in a time block. So time block here means 15 minutes. So every 15 minutes, there will be a time, it's known as a time block. So every 15-minute time block, the deviation would be calculated. And this is for a general seller. General seller means what? So any power plant except four types of power plants are exempted. They have got some special privileges. So one power plant which is exempted is the wind power plant. Another which is exempted, not really exempted, but they have a different set of clauses. The clauses for them are separate. So there is wind, there is solar, there is run-of-river power plant, basically a small hydropower plant, SHP. And third is a power plant based on municipal solid waste, MSW power plant. So these four guys have some special provisions. Their regulations are separate. Apart from that, every other power plant is a general seller. So if you have a coal-based thermal power plant, if you have a gas-based thermal power plant, if you are a large hydro power plant, if you are a nuclear power plant, all those people, they fall under the general seller category. So this is the rules for the general sellers, that their deviation is actual minus scheduled, and the percentage is calculated by actual minus schedule divided by the scheduled generation. So how much you have deviated from the schedule expressed as a percentage of the schedule, that is the deviation percentage. And you will see the penalty is calculated on this deviation percentage. Now, second one, if you see, this is the deviation in time block for a wind and solar seller. WS seller means either wind or solar seller. So for wind and solar, here you see, now the first formula is same, deviation is same, actual minus schedule. But the second formula, as you can notice, there is a difference here. So you have actual minus scheduled in the numerator. Denominator is the available capacity. So that is again some sort of a privilege, or some sort of a leeway, some sort of a discount which is given to the your wind and solar sellers. So here it is not being divided by the scheduled generation, rather by the available capacity. And usually, always capacity will be more than the scheduled generation. So available capacity is the maximum you can generate. Scheduled generation will be some fraction of it. Either the scheduled generation can be same as available, or it will be some lesser fraction of the available. So here, as you can see, for the wind and solar seller, there is sort of a benefit, or there is a leeway which has been provided, that these guys can, their deviation percentage would be calculated by dividing by the available capacity. So basically the deviation percentage would be lower because the denominator is higher. So the percentage deviation would be lower and they will have some sort of a advantage or benefit in terms of the penalties. But also one more thing you notice is that this formula here, as the CRC regulation mentions, this is only till 31st March 2026. That means almost for one and a half years from the date of release of these regulations. And what will happen from 1st April 2026? So from 1st April 2026, the formula for a wind and solar seller deviation percentage will be revised as follows. So here again, you can see the numerator is same. Denominator, now they will put X% of available capacity plus 100 minus X% of scheduled generation, where the X will be stipulated by the commission through separate orders after public consultation. So that means that gradually from April 2026 onwards, the the wind and solar seller will also be gradually, they will be brought towards the general seller. So initially, as you can see here, initially, currently, entire thing, the entire numerator, entire denominator is available capacity, but gradually this share of available capacity X% will be lowered, and gradually the 100 minus X will be increased, and till finally the formula becomes, maybe not immediately, in few years it may become same as that for a general seller. So that is little bit of how the deviation is calculated. Then based on these deviation calculations, there is some provision for penalties. So maybe we'll quickly look at that also. So this is for general seller. For a general seller, the charges for deviation are calculated as follows. As you can see here, there are two possibilities. One is that you are over injecting into the grid. Over injection means there was some scheduled generation. Let's say in some 15-minute time block, you were supposed to inject, let's say, 10 megawatt hour of electricity into the grid. But instead of 10, you actually injected 12 megawatt hour. So this 2 megawatt hour which you have injected extra, that is like the over injection. Now, because you have injected extra electricity into the grid from what was stipulated, you should be earning money for that, because this is some energy which you have put extra into the grid. So that is why it is written here as the receivable by the seller. So this is the amount which they will receive for the over injection. Now, what they have done interestingly in these regulations is that the clauses of how much you will be paid, that receivable has been tied with the frequency. When the frequency is within F band. What is this F band here is basically the desirable range of frequency. So can you say what is the desirable range? I mean, we all know that the frequency of the Indian power system, power grid, is 50 hertz. But what is the desirable range? What might be the range in which the grid operator, the system operator, would like to keep the frequency? What is the desirable range? Can you make a guess, anyone?
Anyone from the participants?
Okay, no guesses. So let me inform you. So basically this range is very, very stringent. It is from 49.9 hertz to between 50.05 hertz. So that is the type of tight band we have for the frequency. I mean, not that the system will trip beyond that, but this is a desirable, the F band corresponds to this, basically the desirable range of frequency. The system operator would like to keep the system within this. If it goes beyond this, still the system can operate, but that is like the yellow zone. It's not the green zone. So the green zone is very, very tight, and in the yellow zone, still the system can operate, but then it's not really desirable. So within this green zone here, as you can see, there is the clauses given for over injection. So now when the system frequency is between 49.97 hertz to 50.03 hertz, that means just 0.03 hertz beyond, on the both sides of the standard frequency, then this guy will be paid at the reference charge rate. Reference charge rate means whatever is their approved tariff. So whatever is the approved tariff, they will be paid exactly same. if the system is in this very close to the standard frequency. Then the 2 megawatt hour extra which this guy injected, he will be paid exactly at the tariff which was decided for his normal operation. The same tariff rate he will be paid for the extra 2 megawatt hour. But if this is the case, if the frequency is between 50.03 hertz to 50.05 hertz, for every increase in frequency by 0.01 hertz, charges for deviation for such seller shall be reduced by 25% of the reference rate. So the charges for deviation becomes 50% of reference rate when frequency is 50.05 hertz. And why is that so? Because the system frequency is already on the higher side. It is, more than the standard frequency, and you are over injecting. Over injecting power as a generator, as a power plant, if you are over injecting, means you are further increasing the power supply in the system, and it will drive the frequency even farther away on the higher side. So which is not a desirable thing. The system frequency is already high. We would like to bring it back to 50 rather than pushing it higher. So that is why if the system frequency increases from 50.03 till 50.05, then the payment you receive gets lowered. So for every 0.01 hertz, that it decreases by 25%. And so if the system frequency is at this level, then you will be only paid at 50% of your reference rate. So whatever was your decided tariff, only half of that you will get. And similarly, on the lower side, when the system frequency is between 49.97 hertz to 49.9 hertz, for every decrease in frequency by 0.01 hertz, charges for deviation for such seller shall be increased by 2.15% of reference rate. So the charges for deviation become 115% of RR when frequency is 49.9 hertz. Because now what is happening, that the system frequency is low. As you can see, it is on the lower side, and you are over injecting. Over injecting means you are pushing the frequency up. So that is a good thing. You are basically stabilizing the grid. So it is like an incentive you are being paid. So for every decrease in frequency below 49.97 hertz, the tariff will be increased. So you will get some extra benefit. Every 0.01 hertz decrease, your tariff increases by 2.15%. So if the system frequency is 49.9 hertz and you are over injecting, you will be paid at 115% of your reference rate. So that type of mechanism is built in. And if you go beyond 50.05 hertz or below 49.9 hertz, then basically, things will change. The penalty and incentive are further increased. And same way there is for under injection. For lack of time, we'll not go into details of this, but the similar phenomena that if frequency is less and you are further under injecting, then you will be penalized more. If the system frequency is on the higher side and then you are under injecting, then you will be rewarded because you are bringing the system back to the standard value of frequency. So those type of mechanisms are there. That is for a general seller. But if you look at a wind and solar seller, again, the wind and solar seller has been given some special privileges. For a wind and solar seller, the amount of penalty or incentive is without any linkage to grid frequency. That is a very, very important thing. Irrespective of wherever the frequency is, you will be paid at a fixed rate of penalty or incentive. So there is no linkage to the grid frequency. That is a sort of a very big advantage or benefit being given to the wind and solar sellers. And the mechanism is also very simple for them. So if you are over injecting as a wind and solar seller, then there are two bands which they have defined. One is the initial band, which is WS1, and second is the VLWS2, which is like little broader band. So if you are within the tighter band, then you will be paid at the contract rate. If you are in the little wider band, WLWS2, then your payment will be reduced. It will be only 90% of the contract rate. And if you go beyond this wider band, if you're outside the second band also, then you will be receiving no payment. It will be zero. So that is for over injection. For under injection means whatever you are supposed to generate and pump into the grid, if you are pumping less power, if you're under injecting, similarly, if it is within some small band, tight band, then you will be, the amount you have to pay as a penalty, that will be exactly at the contract rate. But if you go to the little wider band, beyond the narrow band, then your penalty is more. It is 110% of the contract rate. And if you go outside the second band also, then your penalty is just double. It's 200% of the contract rate. Okay. So that type of thing, simple mechanism. And the most important thing is that for wind and solar seller, it is untied from the grid frequency. Irrespective of wherever the grid frequency is, your thing is constant. Your penalty and incentive is constant. And now, what are these bands? Let's quickly look at those also. These are the volume limits for wind and solar cell. What are these volume limits? Let's look at that. So if you see, these are the from the date of commencement of these regulations till 31st March 2026, the volume limits shall be like this. So if you are a solar power plant, or if you are a hybrid of wind and solar, then your tight band, initial band is 10%, and the second wider band is between 10 to 15%. So if you go basically beyond 15%, that is really unacceptable. And if you're a wind power plant, you have little more leeway, because wind is usually more difficult to forecast. There is no base profile. For solar, you have a base profile, right? You know that for solar, it will increase. After sunrise, it will start increasing. It will peak in the noon and then again go down gradually in the evening, and after sunset, it will be zero. So at least there is a base profile in solar, and then there can be fluctuations. It can go here and there, or something can happen. But there's a base profile to forecast. But for wind, there is no base profile. It is very, very flexible. It can change to any profile on any pattern on a given day, and that is why wind is more little more tricky to forecast, and that is why wind is given little more leeway. So there, for wind, the initial tight band is 15%. The little relaxed band is from 15 to 20%, and beyond 20% is the unacceptable zone. But this is only till 31st March 2026. After 1st April 2026, the regulation says that these bands will be revised as follows. So for a solar or wind solar resource, the inner band will become 5%, outer band will be 5 to 10%, and beyond 10% would be unacceptable. Whereas for a wind power plant, the inner band would be 10%, outer would be 10 to 15%, and beyond 15% it would be unacceptable. So as you can see, the regulations are also going in that direction, that they are becoming increasingly stringent over the years. And what that basically means is that you need to have, as a solar or wind power plant, you need to have better and better forecasts going ahead, because your band of allowable variation is getting tightened. So you have to have a better forecast. So this is a little bit of the deviation settlement mechanism, and let's look at. So this is one last section of the discussion. I have a meeting from 12. So, but maybe just quickly, I'll give you an overview of this, maybe in 5-7 minutes. Some little bit of research work which we have done on this in terms of explorations in machine learning based solar PV forecasting. So just to give you a quick overview, there are primarily 3 types of methods which have been used in the literature for solar resource forecasting. So first are what are known as the physical or empirical models, and they depend on the modeling the entire atmosphere, what are known as the GCMs, the global climate models. So you are modeling the entire weather parameters, all the entire weather of a given location, and it is quite intricate and time consuming, computationally very intensive. So might not be very feasible or viable for a small PV power plant. On the other hand, you have statistical or time series models also for forecasting, but the problem is that they are best suited for stationary time series, whereas your solar irradiance data, as we know, is a non-stationary time series. So not really a good match as well. So machine learning forecasting is little bit of, you can say, an emerging area, though for last 5-7 years, a lot of work has been done in this domain. And the interesting thing is it can capture multiple patterns. It can work on non-stationary data also very well. So we have done some work on this machine learning based forecasting. And when we look at the literature, I mean, this is a little older. So my first PhD student, she worked on this solar PV forecasting. And when she was doing her literature review 3-4 years back, around 2020-21. So this was, as of that time, maybe ratios might have changed a little bit, but more or less it remains similar. So most of the work which has been done in literature for machine learning forecasting is on multivariate forecasting. So they're looking at several variables, not just one variable, several weather parameters to be taken together. Whereas only 1/5 of the literature is on the univariate forecasting, basically where you're just taking the irradiation or maybe the PV power output as the variable of concern. So this is a little bit of the schematic of what work we have done a little bit in terms of the. So we have worked at different time scales. We have worked at hour ahead forecasting and also day ahead forecasting, and we have worked both with univariate and multivariate forecasting. We also looked at sample microgrid system and what can be the impact of this. So that type of thing. So just to give you an overview, the main innovation what we have tried to implement here is that instead of using a plain machine learning based forecasting algorithm, we have coupled it with some sort of a decomposition algorithms. These decomposition algorithm, it is similar to what you know as like the Fourier decomposition, something similar to that, but little different, is that they are breaking down the complex signal into simpler components, and those simpler components are much easier to forecast. So there are several decomposition algorithms. What we have done with are the empirical mode decomposition and its variants. The good thing about empirical mode decomposition and its variants is that they are adaptive in nature. So looking at the depending upon the type of data, the technique will adapt, and it is like very interesting to look at. Maybe you can look at it in detail later. This is just a little bit of overview of the empirical mode decomposition. It breaks down the original data into several orthogonal subseries. Orthogonal subseries in terms of like there is no overlapping frequencies. Each one is at a different frequency, and they are known as the intrinsic mode functions or IMFs. And so you get basically different frequency components, and so it's basically extracting both amplitude and frequency. And what it looks like, I'll just quickly show you. So this is what the EMD IMFs they look like. So so the first time when you put the signal through the EMD technique, what you get is the most highest frequency component. So as you can see here, there is both frequency and amplitude, which is can be extracted here. Then little less frequency until like that. So in this data, like we have got 12 IMFs. I've not shown all. So IMF 1, 2, 3, 8, and 12. 12th one is at the lowest frequency, and another series here it is having 13 IMFs. So like that, the number of IMFs can vary depending on the complexity of the time series. And so one analogy which is often given in this context is something similar to extracting the juice of sugarcane. So once you put first time, you get some juice, then you take out that remaining sugarcane, and again you put it back, and you get some amount of juice like that. So basically, you extract first IMF, and then whatever is the residue, you put it back to the technique, to the algorithm, and then you get the second extraction. Then you put the residue back into the technique, you get the third extraction, till the time you have extracted all the juice or all the different frequencies from the signal. So what we have done is that we have extracted these different signal components, and then we have forecasted each signal component separately, and then combined the individual forecasts to get the overall forecast. And then we have tried it with different types of machine learning models. So this was one of the initial works where we combined it with some ensemble of simple models. So these are some simple ML models: K nearest neighbor, decision tree regressor, and the ridge regressor. So these are all linear regressor models, and based on that, it says we created a stacked model. We did the empirical mode decomposition and coupled it with this. And just quickly, if you see here the results, I mean, this our MEMD stacked model. EMD is the empirical mode decomposition. M stands for multivariate. So your multivariate empirical mode decomposition coupled with the simple model, the stacked model of simple models. What we got is that our error was actually very low, and in fact, if you see, it is even better than it's performing better than your advanced neural, this artificial neural networks, or your LSTM, which is a deep learning technique. Even better than that, the results we got for MEMD stacked. So that gave us some more confidence. We think we decided that okay, basically this approach is working, and so we tried. Then next exploration we did was coupling the decomposition technique with a deep learning model. So instead of LSTM, we took GRU, which is a little more simpler to deal with, and also we combined principal component analysis here. And these were the results we got with this. So coupling the MEMD, PCA, and GRU, which was our proposed model, which is shown as model 1 here. And as you can see, the model 1, we are getting very good results. And as per the literature for PV forecasting, what we call as excellent forecast is that if you have your normalized root mean square error less than 10%. So for all the 4 locations of our interest, which we studied in this study, what we found is that for all these 4 locations, the overall annual NRMSE was less than 10% for our model, and which is an excellent forecast. So these, so both of these, the initial and the second study, we did on a R ahead basis, and this boosted our confidence. And we thought that okay, let's go for a day ahead forecast. and then we went for a day ahead PV power forecast also. So 1 day in advance, which is a little more tricky, because you don't have 1 hour ahead is a little simpler because it's just the next hour, so the weather pattern is not going to change very erratically maybe. But 1 day in advance is quite challenging, and which is like the real problem which we needs to be solved for the grid stability. And with this day ahead PV power forecasting, we again did with a similar approach, but this time we used LSTM, and we combined a little modified version of MEMD, what is known as noise assisted MEMD, with your LSTM model. And this time the results were not that good, but not bad also. We got in the good category, as you can see here. Good forecast is where your NRMSE is between 10 to 20%. We got around 15%, somewhere between 12 to 15% of NRMSE for all the locations across the year. So that type of things we have a little bit of done, and few more works in this domain, but just I'll keep it to this. And and then this thing, there's those were some initial studies. Based on that, we have got some particular projects also, and we have established our own weather monitoring stations in Roorkee and this adjoining area in Uttarakhand, and one in Haryana, one in Uttar Pradesh. So in Greater Noida, close to your campus, GBU. So these 6 weather monitoring stations we have put up, and we are collecting our own real-time data at every 5-minute time interval. We are capturing all these different parameters, and we are developing forecasts for solar PV based on this data. So this is our centralized monitoring station in Roorkee campus, from where we are monitoring the forecasts for all these 6 locations. And this is just the list of references, papers which we have published in last 2-3 years on the forecasting of solar PV. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you so much. Any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you so much, sir. Participants, if you want to ask any question, please, you are free to ask. Anyone?
Good morning, sir.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
So it was indeed very good lecture from your side, though it was research part. So all terms is very difficult to understand for everyone. But of course, this will energize our participant to do something in this area. Sir, I wanted to ask them, how will this machine learning will be helpful in forecasting? How much it is helpful rather than the conventional methods of forecasting?
Helpful for what, sir?
For forecasting.
Okay. Yeah, so in fact, for forecasting, it is pretty effective. If you see, as we said, the traditional station, the statistical models, time series forecasting models like you have ARIMA and all, they are not very effective because of the nature of the the data. So the solar PV data, or even wind data for that matter, is non-stationary data. So in this context, actually, machine learning is pretty effective. And most of these days, I mean, if you see, there are a lot of papers also coming out. There are different applications people are talking about, and we are getting pretty good forecasts. In fact, if I just showed you the overview. If you look at the season-wise variation, so when you have some cloudless season where less cloud cover is there, we are getting accuracy of up to 97% also. But when the cloudy season is there, it is little challenging. So if you look at monsoons and all, then maybe our accuracy is going down to 90%, 88%, around that. So like that.
And what is the difference between machine learning and deep learning method of forecasting for your research?
Right. So, sir, these are different techniques. Machine learning, when we call machine learning, it's like the broader umbrella under which there are different techniques. There are some simple techniques based on just simple regression like that. Some so like I said, there was this decision tree regressor is there. There is k-nearest neighbor. These are simple like regression techniques. Then there are some decision tree based techniques like random forest and all. And then there are some deep learning techniques where there is the model has such a structure that it retains the previous data. So it is not just forecasting based on the current data. It has got several layers, and those layers are being trained over the several epochs of data. So those are little more advanced techniques, deep learning techniques. They are little advanced ones, and they give better results definitely. So currently, what we have used is one LSTM, another is GRU. These LSTM is the long short-term memory, and it has got layers where we are having the memory of the past data as well. So it gives the better forecast.
So are you using your own codes or some software for that?
Sir, for the individual techniques, we don't need to develop separate codes because these days the Python libraries, the LSTM model and those models are there. But the decomposition technique we are developing on our own, and then we are coupling the decomposition with the machine learning technique.
So codes are developed generally in Python, even to align it with the existing codes.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Thakur sir. Thank you, Thakur sir. Anyone who wants to ask any question? Is there anyone? Okay.
Thank you, sir. It was such a wonderful and informative session.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for inviting me. It was nice interacting with all of you. If the participants would have also interacted, it would have been even better. But at least I got to interact with all of you, so that's good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sometimes participants have the network issue and sometimes they hesitate in asking the questions.
I understand.
That is also the thing.
Yeah, we have been seeing that, COVID times, the people are a little fed up with online platforms these days. I think it's better to have more person-to-person contact. But anyway, it was good. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, sir. And thank you for inviting me. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'll take your leave. Actually, I have another meeting to attend. So I'll take your leave.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Once again, participant, after finishing this session, I will circulate a Google form to you for the today's session attendance, morning session attendance. So kindly fill that one for attendance. So thank you for attending this valuable session. You can leave now.